All right, we are back and we have a great presentation that's coming up. This is Dr. Christopher Harris. His session title is one that's going to be very interesting for all of us, which is the understanding and using ChatGPT. Now he's going to do a condensed version of this presentation, so I am going to be quiet and I'm going to give him controls of the system so he can just take off and go along, go with it. So let me pick my controls here, get up in here. And I'll let you know when I see your screen. There you go. Okay, I see your screen.
Wonderful. Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Christopher Harris, or just Chris. I'm the director of the School Library System for Genesee Valley BOCES. We're an educational services agency in Western New York. We support the school libraries of 22 small rural school districts here in Western New York. That's a total student population of about 20,000 before you thought that I was some big deal out here in Western New York with 22 school districts. We have really small districts. I also serve right now as an ALA Senior Policy Fellow for youth issues. So I'm helping ALA look at all kinds of things that impact school libraries, but also youth in public libraries. And I've been doing a lot of work around ChatGPT. And so I wanted to come and talk here about how can we in libraries use this. And I think it's very important that libraries are not only using this, but taking the lead on training teachers and administrators within our districts on understanding and using ChatGPT. So I think this is a really important thing for us to work on. It's one of the things, I just finished up the libraries.today National Leadership Grant through IMLS. So if you go to libraries.today, all the great resources there. But one of our big recommendations was for librarians to take a more active role in rolling out ChatGPT training. So let's jump in. This is a quote I like to start with. It comes from Seth Godin, who's a marketing guy. And he really says basically, in the realm of AI, in this age of AI, good enough is now AI. It's instant, it's free, and it's pretty good. It's good enough. If you want great, that's probably still human. But good enough, that's AI. But what does that mean for us? Well, it's going to have a lot of implications on our work, on just the economy and work in general, but also on what we're doing in schools. So let's dive a little deeper. What's going on in ChatGPT? What does it really mean? Well, the chat in ChatGPT actually stands for chatbot. Now, my whole dissertation research was about how do we help teachers become more confident with teaching computer science and computational thinking. The kids are going to be just fine. All right, they're already using ChatGPT. They've got it all figured out. What about the teachers? What about us? How do we bring teachers along so that they feel confident and librarians feel confident teaching about, explaining ChatGPT? The answer, based on my dissertation research, is that it can really help to start with analog, pencil and paper. So that's what I like to do. So here we can start with a pencil and paper basis of working with a chatbot, where it uses our brains as the intelligence, where it uses our work to parse text. Parse means to break apart and find the keywords in a sentence, because the computer doesn't really understand English. It's all ones and zeros inside there. And so what it's doing is breaking apart questions that we ask her, the prompts that we give the AI, and it's finding those keywords that it knows have meaning. Now, in the end, this becomes an ELA question. This is an ELA exercise right here, because we're looking at, whoop. Oh, I am so sorry. I messed all of that up, didn't I? All right. Screen sharing is paused. Resume share.
Yeah, we can see your screen. It says,
oh, okay. So I didn't screw everything up. Good. I'm sorry. I thought I screwed everything up. I accidentally hit a key on the keyboard when I got all excited talking about this. So this becomes an ELA exercise because what we're working with here is actually talking about types of questions. That's how a chatbot understands what we're doing. It's going to look at the type of question. And that's ELA exercise. If we're looking at a what question or a who or a when or a where, and then we can look at the words that are modifiers. So we can ask a simple question of our classroom chatbot. What is being served in the cafeteria for lunch today? Well, what type of question is that? It's right there in the question itself. It's a what question. So we know the answer will probably be a thing. And then the topic of the question we can figure out is lunch today. And today is a good modifier because not tomorrow, not next week, today. And then you have to ask, well, where would we maybe go for information about this? Possibly the school lunch menu on the website. That's all that a chatbot or even a generative AI bot like ChatGPT, that's what it's doing. It's parsing out a question, figuring out what the key words are, reformatting those words, removing all the ones that don't matter, and figuring out where can I find an answer to this question. Now, ChatGPT is kind of special because it's a generative. That's what the G and GPT stands for. It stands for generative AI. But again, we can play around with generative AI in our libraries and our classrooms. A great way to do this is to get the kids in a group and have them tell a story one word at a time. So each person is going to add one word onto the story. And I like this as a story starter or prompt. Once upon a time, there were three, and then they can start adding words. And it always gets a little crazy at first. And you say, see, the generative is hard. Let's try again. And then they know what they're doing and they go around and it works nicely. But then afterwards, you can tell them about how prompts work and how generation works because it works on math. It's all math at the end of the day. It's what's most likely, what is statistically, probability-wise, most likely to come next in the sentence. And with every little bit of information we add in the prompt, it limits what's most likely to come next. That's why the more information we can give ChatGPT in a prompt, the better the result is probably going to be. Because if I said once upon a time there were three, I don't know what we're going to get. But if I said once upon a time there were three Billy, then I'm probably going to get goats, gruff, right? Once upon a time there were three bears, we're probably going to start talking about porridge and breaking chairs. Once upon a time, there were three blind mice. Once upon a time, there were three little pigs. Even just one more word gets our brains into a recall mode, and we're able to figure out where we're going. The hard part of generation and why it takes such a big computer to train and run ChatGPT is because it has to handle prompts that don't narrow down that quickly. And so it has to consider many, many, many words. And then it has to break it down and see. But every time it's doing that, it has to follow a certain structure of a sentence. I was doing this with a group of administrators, school administrators the other day, and we had once upon a time, there were three cats that mice. And everybody there was like, what? Because based on English sentence structure, cats that mice does not work. Because once we say cats that, we're looking for a verb. We have the noun that, we're looking for a verb. So we couldn't say cats that mice. And so we laughed and started again and it worked. But there is a structure to what generative AI is doing. And when it doesn't follow this English structure of a sentence, that's when we know it's breaking down. It gets really weird. Now we can play with this more and we can actually dive into ChatGPT and see what's going on using Wolfram Alpha. Stephen Wolfram wrote a great book that I'm going to show you in just a second that I highly recommend. And in this, we can go into Wolfram Alpha online. We can even just use the free playground, the sandbox that they have. And we can ask the question, my favorite subject in school is, and we can get answers from all the kids. And then we can show them the actual code and what's going on. So I loaded this code up in Wolfram Alpha, and I just had to copy and paste it out of the book that I'm about to show you. And this runs GPT-2, not 3, 3.5, or 4, 2, GPT-2. This is why a year ago, before GPT really hit the scene, nobody was really thinking this was going to go anywhere. We all thought it was going to be a couple more years. We knew it was coming, but we thought it'd be a couple more years because GPT-2 it's like a child compared to GPT-3 or 4. It really is not great. As you'll see here, my favorite subject in school is show me the 6 top probabilities. And it got reading, science, how. My favorite subject in school is how. Okay, whatever. Math, a quote mark, and the. And the is the most likely, followed by a quote mark. Mathematically, the most likely. I mean, that's just kind of ridiculous. My slides aren't advancing. Oh no, let me stop sharing and do a reshare. I am so sorry. I messed it up and I'm supposed to be the technology expert here. But you know what? It just goes to show you the root word of technology is technical difficulties. Well, what was I showing you? I was showing you the parsing. I showed you a little this. I showed you this graphic if you missed it. And now we're looking at my favorite subject in school is, are we good now? Yes. All right.
Yes.
Thank you for the feedback. I appreciate it. So everybody gets to screw up and make mistakes. So a quote mark, ChatGPT 2, oh, you silly computer program there. So I love that we get to go in and look and see it. And in fact, it's a really great book. It's called What is ChatGPT Doing and Why Does It Work? And the answer is they're not quite sure. But Stephen Wolfram was really nice and he shared his book out. And so the whole book is online on his website. So you can buy the book on Amazon. You can go to the website and read the whole book. And I'm going to say he's going to tell you about pre-training and he's going to tell you about the transformer, which are the P and the T in ChatGPT. But they get really complicated. So we're going to gloss over them right now and jump into talking about how do we do this. This is going to be really my one slide about, oh my goodness, they're going to cheat and it's going to destroy education. It's not, but it's going to change education. And what I'm going to really tell you is we're going to have to, all of us, focus on the process and not the product. Because ChatGPT and generative AI can create any product you throw at them. I've been trying. I've been racking my brain. I've been working. I've been reading research. I've been trying to find a way to obfuscate a question enough that a student can understand it, but it will stump the AI, and I cannot do it. I cannot figure out a way to do it. It is that good at parsing out what I'm intending to get at. Now, don't freak out. Focus on the process. And the best way to do this is to reach out to some of your math teacher colleagues because they've had to deal with this for almost a decade. Go talk to them about PhotoMath. That's the app where you just take out your phone and snap a picture of the math homework and it does all the work for you. It shows you all the steps to copy down. They've had this going on in their classroom for almost a decade, 9 years. They've been teaching with PhotoMath on everybody's phone. Did they stop teaching math? No. Did they change how they assign and assess math work? Well, I would hope so. Because when I was in high school math, we used to get like 20 problems a night. But all the math teachers I talk to say, if I give 20 problems, I know they're going to pull out their phone and just copy right off of PhotoMath. So we don't give them 20 problems. We give them maybe a handful of problems. And we even sometimes give them the answer in upper level math. Why? Because we want them to really focus on the process of getting to the answer, not worrying about whether or not they got the right answer. We have to change how we teach. We have to focus on a process, not on a product. And when we say product or process, I don't mean like an assembly line of products. You can't just keep saying, oh, make them do a rough draft. None of that works because AI can do a rough draft. Now, the US Department of Education, their Office of Educational Technology, they've been talking about this too. And they have a great white paper out about artificial intelligence. I highly recommend it. I thought they did a really nice job. One of the best things that came out of this work in this white paper was a really good analogy that we can bring to our students and our teaching colleagues to really talk about how we should be using AI. And they say use it less like a robot vacuum cleaner where you lay back on the couch and it does all the work without us looking at it, and more like an electric bike that helps you climb hills. So we're still driving the bike, we're still in control of the bike. But when we need that little assist from the motor, because we don't have legs like that guy has, it can help us get up the hill. That's awesome. Less like a robot vacuum cleaner where the dog makes a mess and the robot vacuum cleaner doesn't know from a dog mess and spreads dog mess all across the floor. You've all heard the stories. It's happened. That's not good. And it can happen with ChatGPT if you're not careful. Go look for the story of those poor lawyers that thought ChatGPT was a great search engine that had all the answers, and they submitted a brief to a federal judge, and it made up all of the courts, all the case citations. Can you imagine being a lawyer that has to go in front of the judge and say, well, I thought ChatGPT was going to be right. And so when he told me about all these cases, I didn't go do my work that I'm supposed to do. I didn't go look them up. I didn't go verify that they're real cases. I signed my name at the bottom saying everything above was legal and accurate and correct. And now they face possible disbarment. They treated it like a robot vacuum cleaner. They abdicated their professional responsibility and gave that responsibility over to ChatGPT, and you should never, ever do that. Treat it like an electric bike where it can help you up the hill, but you're always the one driving and in control. So if we're going to use it like an electric bike, how can it assist you? What can it do in the school and the library? Well, one thing it does really nicely is create short passages at a given reading and comprehension level. Now you'll notice my prompt there, and I didn't just tell it, write this at a 12th grade level. I had become more specific with my directive, my prompt, when I'm looking for one of these short passages. And I say now write it at a 12th grade reading and comprehension level using appropriate vocabulary and sentence structure. Now, for 12th grade, it doesn't matter. But if we're talking about second grade, because we can tell it to do this at a different passage or a different reading level, we can say, take that passage and rewrite it at a 6th grade reading level. But here again, I say reading and comprehension level using that appropriate vocabulary and sentence structure, because we don't want them to bring those 12th grade words, vocabulary, into our 6th grade or 2nd grade passage. So we really want to make sure that we're prompting it and telling it exactly what we want and what we're looking for. Now, all of these slides and all of these links will be available for you at the end, just so you can see that. It does translation beautifully. I back check it with Google Translate and some other translation software to make sure. Came back perfectly into the initial prompt, and so I think it's a great tool for doing things like that. It also writes one heck of a lesson plan. Now, I've been telling all the principals this, and I've been telling them, look, I'm a school administrator. I used to be a teacher. We had to write our lesson plans. I'm like, we know why we're doing this, you know. It writes a heck of a lesson plan. Now, what's really awesome about these lesson plans, I'm not going to just take it and run with it. I'm not going to abdicate my professional responsibility. But what I will say is what's really cool is here I told it to develop a lesson plan using a constructivist learning style. So I can give it the pedagogical style, the approach that I want it to take. So then we can switch it up and we can say, hey, rewrite that lesson using a direct explicit instruction style. And then it'll have, you know, the I do, we do, you do, instead of an exploration and concept invention. So if you're doing any mentoring, any coaching with new teachers or new librarians, this is a way to show them the difference of a lesson when you do it in a constructivist style, an inquiry style, a direct explicit instruction style. And it'll tell you at the end in some notes, or you can ask it follow-up questions. Why would we use one style instead of another style? Why would this lesson work or not work with your class of students? What modifications would you need to make for your students that you as the teacher should know what's going on in your class? What you as the teacher should be able to know from past instruction that you're going to have to make changes. So it's a great tool to use for PD around that. I would then say, this modification shows that it can be a tool for teachers and administrators. Now, I do want to point out, Seth Godin had another great thing about AI, and he cautions us that AI does not raise the bar, it raises the average. And he says it's kind of like the high jump, right? The person that gets over the highest bar in the high jump wins. But what AI does is it doesn't raise the final bar, that top spot of the bar, that expert, awesome, incredible, great level, but it brings the bad to middle end, it brings it up to good enough. And that's kind of dangerous because it's closing the gap between not great and great. And as good enough comes up higher, you're going to start to see issues. That's what the Hollywood writers' strike is really about. Because the people that are writing great scripts are worried that great is going to fall away. But really, what the greater concern is for the writers in general is that I think the Hallmark Channel is already using AI to turn out scripts because they haven't had an original movie in quite a few years. I mean, let's be honest. And AI can write a Hallmark movie script all day long. It can probably do it in 20 minutes. I mean, they're good enough. So that's the big difference. Is AI can now write a Hallmark movie. So what about the writers that were employed to write those Hallmark movies? What happens there? That's a real implication we need to think about because ChatGPT is good for writing. And this was a study that just came out. MIT just announced it, sure released it. They have the full article in Science is open and accessible because it's always good to go back to the source. But really what they're saying is writers that use ChatGPT worked faster and wrote better. Worked faster and wrote better using ChatGPT. Now, there is a bit of inequity there because those who are the best writers without ChatGPT are going to be better writers with ChatGPT. But I want to show you my process because this really comes down to something that I think a lot of schools are going to be talking about here as school starts back up is what does this mean in terms of plagiarism? What's the policy? What's the academic integrity policy? And it can't just say students will not use AI because AI is now embedded throughout Google Docs and Microsoft Word. It's part of search. It's part of all of the internet. You might as well tell them to go back and use a manual typewriter, and that's just not going to happen. So we need to talk about what is an accurate way to use AI to assist as a bike, not as a vacuum. So here's what I do. Here's a prompt that I wrote recently for a test that I was working on. This is about a third of the final output that I ended up using. So I do write quite extensively. You'll note that I gave it a clear style right at the beginning. I always like to give it a style when I'm asking for help with writing tests. I said, write an op-ed, not a blog post, not an essay, not a report, not a encyclopedia article. It knows all of those different styles, and the writing, it turns out, will be different depending on the style you ask for. So I wrote here asking for an op-ed. I gave it a title. Why? Because if we ask our ELA people, or we know as librarians as well, titles tell you what's going on. They sum up the whole thing. So I like to give it a title to start from. Now I misspelled a word in the title and it didn't even matter. It knew what I meant. I think I repeated it later. So I gave it an output style, I gave it a title, and then I just started giving it language. I gave it words I wanted it to use. I gave it my style of writing, my keywords, my phrases that I use. I didn't think about spelling. I think I wrote mainly in sentences. They might not all be sentences. I didn't worry about organizing anything, first, that's none of that. This is a brain dump. I brain dumped what I wanted into this jumbled mess of a prompt. Then I got a draft back from ChatGPT. And it's just a draft. There is no way that I'm doing this or anything like that. But I looked at that draft. I investigated it. And sure enough, I could find the words that I gave it in the prompt. I highlighted them here in 2 example paragraphs. My turns of phrase, my words, my phrases, they were there. I think I can say that this, includes my words. So I would say this is now our writing. This isn't ChatGPT alone. I had a lot that went into this. And then I got started with editing. Oh, the editing, look at that result. Everything in blue with track changes, everything in blue crossed out or added in. I'd say that's 75% my editing. So now we've gone from 75% of mine. That's mine. That's not even like maybe it was 30% of mine in the highlighting, but now we're at 75%. So when I put out the final copy that I used, I feel confident that I can stand up and say, this is my writing. I used an electric bike assist to make it faster and a little better, probably, but it's my writing. I would absolutely defend that this is not an example of plagiarism with ChatGPT. And I think that's the key difference we need to look at. Why? Because I went through a process. I didn't use an initial product. And the product that's here is the result of an entire process, not only of what I did here, but all of my prior writing and instruction and learning about writing styles. So process, not product. Now, this is really important because we're going to write the story. We are going to work with kids and we're going to help tell the story. Is it scary, like Terminator 2, where the AI takes over? Ooh, I hope not. But I will guarantee that there are people in your school, adults in your school, that think this is what's going to happen. Is it going to be a sad story where humans give up like they did in Wall-E, where they turn over everything to the AI? Oh, I hope not, because I kind of like humans. I like what I enjoy my work. I want to do my work. Yeah, I'm gonna ask for that electric bike assist, but I don't want to lay back and let a robot vacuum cleaner do all of my writing and work. That's no fun. I'm hoping that we can find a happy medium, something like Big Hero 6, right? Where the humans and the AI work together, where neither of them gives up who they are, the essence, but where they find that way to harmonize and improve upon each other. So I think that's the story that I want us to share and write. But we have to tell the story. We have to show not only the people in the district, but families at home. We need to do parent education. We need to help parents understand because their kids are already using this and they have some of the same fears. So we need to go forth and lead this information. So there's the information. You can grab that QR code for these slides. The slides are all there. There's a whole set of resources at bit.ly/ChatGPT school resources. Everything is Creative Commons licensed. So you are absolutely free to go ahead and use all of this. When you go to that link for the slides, the slide link will give you an opportunity to download as a PDF or as a Mac Keynote. So I'll leave that up there for just a second longer.
You have definitely given me something to think about. I've been waiting for this presentation. Look, is there anyone that has a question that would like to ask Dr. Harris? This is a great time. We have about 2 minutes left before the next session starts. So if you have a question, please put it in the Q&A real quick. And I need to look at your presentation again to digest a lot of what you said. Because
I know there's a lot there. Look,
it's a lot.
I've got so many resources up there. Go look for my resources.
Yeah, and articles too.
Email me if you have questions.
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to get questions from people and respond back. And again, when I say like this is all out there for you to use, we're going to be working as the libraries.today project. We're going to be launching a new website. That's my task. I'm going to go on vacation because I need a little vacation. But when I get back, I'm going to be working on libchat or libgpt. So it'll be at libgpt.org.
Okay. All righty.
And it'll all be there.
Let's see, Q&A. There is a question. I still have concerns about plagiarism. Yeah, I was listening really hard about the plagiarism section you were talking about. What about citing ChatGPT as a source?
I think that's going to be definitely a conversation to have in terms of your policy, your academic integrity policies in a local setting, as to at what point should ChatGPT be included as a source? At what point does it become involved? And thinking also about the message that it sends. So is this going to be a tool, or what? libgpt.org is coming. I've got the domain secured. I just have to build it.
libgpt is coming. Okay, next question. I appreciate the idea of being an assist, but for students who are first learning, how do we still push
the process of writing? Yeah. We push it as a process, where we focus on the understanding and the process, not on the product, where we look at writing workshops, where we look at evaluating not a product with a single grade, but with every writing piece developed, give it that full portfolio assessment, even if we are treating it as a portfolio of one. That's where we need to go to. That's how we do it as a process, not a product.
And I'm so glad
make
that
them
you
get up and talk about it. If they do a writing workshop, if they have to get up and present to their class, then they're going to have to internalize what they're writing.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad you're making the rounds with principals and superintendents. They definitely need to hear this, and librarians definitely need to be, on the definitely helping with the implementation and use of it in schools. Everybody, before we go to Zinnia, I want you all to take a moment in the chat. Some of you all have done it already. Give Christopher some love for this presentation and also the resources he's sharing. We will have a one-pager for everybody to use, so that they can refer to, and also go on social media, give him some love there too, so folks know that we were talking about ChatGPT and AI, and the stereotype is the only thing we know how to do is show books. Don't get me started on my soapbox. All right.
Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
again, Dr. Harris. Take care.